In the shimmering grandeur of the Zahram Palace, where every gilded pillar whispered tales of power and legacy, the billionaire Sheikh Khalid al-Nasir commanded his presence like an unyielding force of nature. His gaze, sharp and icy as desert stars, roamed the vast hall, draped in silks and scents of rare oud, a realm where luxury masked a heart chained by duty and unspoken longing. Tonight, fate tightened its grip in a way Khalid could never foresee, unraveling secrets sewn beneath layers of silence. Amira, the newly appointed maid, moved with a quiet grace that contrasted starkly with the opulence surrounding her. Her eyes, a deep storm of shadows and memories, held stories unvoiced, locked behind a steady, reserved facade. Every step she took echoed delicacy and hidden strength, her presence both a balm and a challenge in this palace of marble and gold. Behind a carved wooden screen, Khalid's formidable counting hall hummed faintly with hushed voices. Drawn by an inexplicable pull, he halted, nose twitching to catch the distinct cadence threading through the air. Amira's voice rose softly but confidently, shifting fluidly across languages: French, Mandarin, Arabic, Russian, one after another, 9 tongues weaving seamless patterns of expression. The shock was visceral. Khalid's stern mask cracked as disbelief warred with fascination. How could the maid, whom he regarded as merely another servant to obey rigid commands, wield such vast knowledge? Each syllable unsettled every rigid belief he clung to about class, loyalty, and the truths spoken only in power's echo. A silence fell heavy, filled with unspoken accusations and a brewing storm of curiosity. His mind raced, corridors of pride clashing with newfound intrigue. Was her past a lie? A secret battleground concealed beneath that modest exterior? The revelation demanded answers, and yet a hesitant gulf grew between them, charged with tense, unreadable glances. Khalid watched Amira from the shadows. Her calm defiance spoke volumes, refusing to be reduced to mere servitude. The Sheikh's heart, encased in years of icy solitude, felt a tremor, an unsteady pulse that neither wealth nor authority could quell. She was no longer just a maid. She had become an enigma that threatened to unbalance his carefully ordered world. And then, as Amira switched effortlessly to Sanskrit, her voice a soft chant threading through the grand hall, an unexpected truth loomed. She recited a line from an ancient royal hymn, a melody only those of noble blood or profound heritage could claim. Khalid's breath caught. The weight of this knowledge shattered everything. The servant he had underestimated was not only fluent in languages of the world, but bore the echo of a lost royal lineage, whispered among desert sands and hidden courts. Around him, the palace seemed a gilded cage, and he its captive, confronting a secret that could dismantle the very foundations of his empire and his heart. Before the next secret of this magnificent palace unfolds, make sure you're part of our story caravan. Many fates are yet to be sealed, and I don't want you to miss a single moment. Leave a like if this Billionaire Sheikh's mystery has captured your heart. Tell us in the comments, from which corner of the world are you following this saga? And what twist do You believe lies ahead? Your passion for these tales drives us forward. Thank you for being with us. The corridors of Sarum Palace seemed to pulse with a quiet tension as Khalid lingered in the shadows, eyes fixed on Amira's composed figure. Every word she spoke in those myriad tongues was a betrayal to the rigid walls of his convictions. Here, beneath layers of gold and opulence, was a woman whose true self threatened to unravel everything Khalid believed about loyalty, class, and himself. As she concluded the ancient Sanskrit hymn, her voice fading into the vastness of the hall, Khalid's breath caught again, this time mixed with the heavy thrum of something unfamiliar. Fear. Not for his life, nor his throne, but for a truth he'd never dared to face, that Amira carried within her the weight of a legacy so profound it could either destroy or redeem his kingdom. He stepped forward silently, the silk beneath his feet, whispering secrets of power, as he crossed the marble floor to the carved screen behind which she had stood. Amira paused, sensing the change in the room, her eyes meeting his with a spark of unyielding fire. "What are you hiding from me, Amira?" Khalid's voice was low, such a stark contrast to his fierce, commanding tone. It trembled with a vulnerability he rarely allowed himself. She held his gaze, steady, without flinching. "Nothing that I wished you to find," she whispered, the faintest strain of sorrow threading through her words. He closed the distance between them until only the faint scent of jasmine and oud separated their worlds. "You speak languages reserved for scholars and rulers, yet you walk these halls as a servant. Why?" His question flared like desert heat. Amira's hands clenched subtly at her sides. "Because this palace is a prison for many truths." The air between them tightened, thick with unspoken histories. Khalid's mind raced back to the countless nights he had spent alone in these halls, carrying the weight of a throne he never fully desired, burdened by expectations as heavy as the jewels on his crown. "Tell me," he commanded softly, "what binds your past to this place? What truth lies beneath your silence?" A flicker of pain flashed in Amira's eyes. "I was born into fire and exile," she began, voice barely above a whisper. "Banished from my own people because of a secret that could topple empires." The gravity of her words resonated through the cavernous hall. Khalid felt the walls close in, yet beneath it all, a thread of empathy wove itself through his guarded heart. He too knew exile, not through bloodlines lost, but by choices made and paths forced upon him. She stepped closer, courage blooming in her stare. "I have hidden not just my identity, but the truth of my heart. For if it were known that I carry the bloodline of a royal house thought extinguished, those who crave power would hunt me relentlessly." Khalid's gaze softened and darkened simultaneously, a storm of emotions raging beyond the control of even the most stoic sheikh. "And yet you did not flee from this palace. Why?" Amira's lips curved in a ghost of a smile. "Because even in gilded cages, I sensed the hope of freedom." "And you," her voice faltered for the smallest moment, "are not what you appear to be." Her words struck him harder than any sword. For years, Khalid had built walls of ice and steel around his heart, convincing himself that power demanded emotion's exile. But here, in the hidden depths of his own realm, the truth was stirring, a hope he dared not deny. Suddenly, the heavy oak door creaked open, and a familiar figure stepped in. Ferris, Khalid's most trusted advisor, eyes sharp and calculating. The tension snapped like a live wire. "My Sheikh." Ferris bowed just enough to show respect, his gaze flickering briefly to Amira. "There is news from the southern borders. Rebellions rising, alliances shifting. We must act swiftly." Khalid turned toward Ferris, every muscle taut. Duty called like an unrelenting desert storm, pulling him back from the fragile connection forming in the grand hall. Yet his mind remained shackled by Amira's confession, the implications cascading like sand through an hourglass. "Prepare the council," Khalid ordered, voice colder now, a mask once again settling over his expression. "But keep our new guest close. Her knowledge may prove valuable." Ferris nodded, suspicious, yet knowing better than to question. As the door closed behind the advisor, Khalid's gaze found Amira's once more. A silent storm passed between them, rich with promises unspoken and dangers yet unseen. She took a hesitant step forward, voice trembling with the weight of her own admission. "There is one more thing," she confessed. "Something I fear will change everything you believe about me, and about what we both must face." Khalid's breath hitched. The world seemed to contract until there was nothing but the heat of her words and the dance of emotions crackling between them. "Speak," he commanded, though his heart betrayed a fragile hope beneath the steel. Amira's eyes shimmered with unshed tears. "The enemy who destroyed my family, the one who cast me into exile, it is closer than you think. Closer than the walls that surround you, in this very palace." A shiver raced down Khalid's spine. His jaw clenched, but the fire in his eyes flared with renewed purpose. "Then we stand together," he vowed, voice low but unyielding. "For whatever shadows lurk, they will find us united, and no secret, no betrayal will break us." The grand hall fell into a charged silence, as if the very stones awaited the unfolding battle of hearts and destinies. Suddenly, a subtle sound disturbed the fragile stillness, a faint but unmistakable click of a lock disengaging in the depths of the palace. Neither Khalid nor Amira heard it immediately, but in that moment, unseen eyes watched from the shadows. A slow, cruel smile curled on a face cloaked in darkness, whispering, "The game has only just begun." The grand hall, once ripe with the scent of oud and jasmine, now held a restless silence, thick with unspoken truths. Khalid's gaze lingered on Amira, her silhouette framed by the warm glow of the hanging lanterns. She stood by the carved screen, a figure of quiet resilience amid the oppressive weight of legacy and expectation. "I need to know everything," Khalid said, voice low, barely more than a breath against the polished marble walls. "Every secret you hide behind those eyes." Amira's chest rose and fell steadily, a fragile strength beneath her composed exterior. "My past is a labyrinth, Khalid. One mistake, One word, and it could unravel everything. He stepped closer, the soft scrape of his slippers, a fragile sound in the stillness. The silk of his robe whispered as he moved, a shroud of power meeting the vulnerability he rarely allowed himself to show. "Why here? Why now?" he pressed, voice sharp with the sting of both command and curiosity. She looked down briefly, reluctant but resolute. "Because this palace, your palace, is both sanctuary and trap. I fled from enemies who would see me broken, and yet I found chains in silver and gold. In shadows, I survive." Khalid's eyes darkened, memories flashing, nights spent walking these halls alone, haunted by decisions made and bloodlines betrayed. The loneliness of his throne, mirrored in the solitary exile behind Amira's calm gaze. "You speak of enemies," his voice dropped. "Are they after you or us?" "The line blurs," Amira confessed, stepping past the screen now, closer still. "My family's ruin was orchestrated by a power that feeds on chaos. Their reach extends beyond borders and secrets. Here, in your court, I suspect they watch and wait." Her words hung heavy. The crystal chandeliers flickered, their light fracturing against the gilded tiles. Khalid's hand clenched, knuckles pale, as a slow-burning fury kindled within. "Then you are not just a pawn in their game," he muttered. "You are a key. Amira, this changes everything." Her eyes caught his, flames mirrored in the desert night sky outside the palace. "And if they come for me," she murmured, "will you stand with me, or against me?" The vulnerability in her voice was raw, yet beneath it throbbed a fierce defiance. Khalid's breath hitched, not from weakness, but from a stirring emotion he barely understood. This woman, once a mere shadow in his palace, had ignited a storm within his icebound heart. Before he could answer, the whisper of footsteps echoed in the corridor. The palace doors swung open once more, barely a creak amid the vastness. A figure stepped inside. Soraya, the queen's confidant, her eyes glinting with the practiced mask of calm. "Sire," Soraya's voice was silk laced with steel. "News from the southern province. There is unrest, an uprising brewing under the guise of loyalty. They claim to seek justice for their fallen, yet I fear it may be a distraction." Khalid's eyes narrowed, the weight of ruling pressing anew. "Prepare the guards. I will address the council at dawn." Soraya's gaze slid over to Amira, sharp and searching. "If I may, Your Highness, this is hardly the time for distractions within the palace." Amira's lips pressed together, but Khalid placed a steadying hand on her arm. "She is not a distraction," he said, voice firm. "She is integral to our survival." Soraya's sly smile tightened, but did not falter. "As you command, my sheikh." The tension rippled beneath the silk and gold, an undercurrent of unspoken caution. Soraya retreated, her presence a shadow that thickened the walls. Khalid turned back to Amira, the distance between them charged with electricity and uncertainty. "Tell me the truth about Soraya," he demanded. "What does she want here?" Amira's eyes darkened, a flicker of mistrust flashing through her composed facade. "She holds secrets that bind her to the very enemy who destroyed my family, and perhaps more." A chill settled over Khalid's heart. The walls he had built for years now seemed porous, threatened by alliances forged in silence and lies. "Then we tread dangerous ground," Khalid whispered, voice heavy with the burden of his crown and the fragile seed of hope blossoming within. Amira nodded, stepping closer, their breaths mingling in the charged air. "Together we carry a legacy that some wish buried beneath the sands. But I will fight for my past, for my future, and for you." His eyes searched hers, vulnerability raw and unmasked. "And if I fail you?" Her hand brushed his, a fleeting caress that spoke of trust and defiance. "Then you risk losing more than a kingdom." Beyond the high windows, the desert moon cast pale light across the ornate gardens, silent witnesses to the union of power and passion blooming within. Suddenly, a distant sound shattered the fragile calm, a metallic clash from the inner courtyard. Guards hurried footsteps, voices raised in alarm. Khalid's gaze snapped toward the source, instincts sharpened beyond words. "What now?" Amira's expression hardened, resolve blazing anew. "Our enemies have made their move." As tendrils of smoke curled into the night air, Khalid and Amira exchanged a glance, equal parts challenge and promise. The walls of Zarham Palace were no longer safe. The game, long concealed behind velvet curtains and whispered intrigues, had erupted into open war. And in the heart of this storm, the truth they both guarded threatened to consume everything. From the shadows, a silent figure watched with cruel delight, eyes gleaming. With a darkness older than the desert itself, the whispered vow escaped like a serpent's hiss. They will not survive the night. The echo of clashing metal and hurried footsteps had barely faded when the heavy doors to the grand hall slammed shut, sealing Khalid and Amira within a fragile bubble of tension neither dared to break. The scent of jasmine and oud lingered like a ghost, mingling with the unfamiliar iron scent of impending danger. Khalid's eyes flicked towards the distant courtyard, where the unrest had erupted. His chest tightened, not from fear of the threat itself, but from the shattering certainty that the palace, his fortress, was no longer impregnable. The weight of a throne was becoming a prison bound by invisible chains of betrayal and secrets. Amira's hands trembled ever so slightly before she clenched them into fists. "They're closer than ever," she whispered, voice steady despite the crack in the calm. "Not just outside these walls, but inside." Her words settled between them like burning embers. Khalid turned fully to her, the fierce fire in his eyes, now tempered by something deeper, an unspoken plea for truth, for alliance, for something beyond duty. "Tell me everything," he demanded softly, the imperative carrying both command and vulnerability. "I have concealed much to survive," Amira began, stepping past the carved screen, the rustle of her skirts whispering against the marble floor. "My family's downfall was orchestrated by those who crave power, men who wear smiles as masks, but wield daggers in shadows." Her dark eyes glistened, reflecting flickers of the chandeliers above. "Their reach is longer than you imagine, interwoven with the court's own threads. Soraya is but one strand." Khalid's jaw clenched at the mention. The queen's confidant, once a mere shadow in the background, now morphed into a looming threat wrapped in silk and poison. His trust frayed like delicate fabric in a brutal wind. A sudden gust swept through the hall as the ancient windows groaned against the desert night. The flame of a nearby lantern flickered violently, casting elongated shadows that danced along the gilded walls, specters of the alliances and betrayals that threatened their fragile union. "You risked much revealing this," Khalid said, stepping closer, the distance between them collapsing to mere breaths. "Why now? What do you want from me, Amira?" Her breath caught. "I want truth, Khalid. Not just from you, but from everyone in this palace that pretends to serve peace while feeding on secrets." Her voice lowered, intimate and fierce. "I want you to see me not as a maid, nor a pawn, but as the woman who carries a legacy you cannot ignore." The rawness in her confession struck a trembling chord in his core. For so long, he had regarded power as armor, keeping emotions at bay. But here, underneath the weight of silk robes and jeweled crowns, he faced a different kind of vulnerability, the one that dared to call his solitude into question. A fragile silence rose. Then, unexpected and almost painfully, Amira reached for his hand. Her fingers brushed his skin, tender yet fearless, igniting a spark that neither could deny nor retreat from. The moment shattered when hurried footsteps echoed behind them. Khalid's heart thundered as Soraya emerged from the shadows, her posture regal, but her smile twisted with subtle menace. "My sheikh!" Soraya's voice cut through the charged air, smooth but icy. "Troubles from the east as well. Unrest is rising faster than our intelligence can keep up." Khalid regarded her dark eyes, reading between the lines, masked by politeness. He knew this game well, the delicate balance of words meant to conceal daggers. "Soraya," he said deliberately, "your presence tonight is timely." A mocking glint flickered across her lips. "Always at your service, my sheikh," she replied, but the subtext was unmistakable. Her gaze landed on Amira for a lingering moment, sharp and calculating. But perhaps some guests require closer observation. The threat in her voice was veiled yet chilling. With a subtle nod, Khalid dismissed her. Soraya's footsteps retreated, leaving the hall colder, the lingering tension thickening like desert fog. Amira exhaled, slowly, eyes seeking refuge in Khalid's. "She's the one I warned you about, the enemy within." The web of court intrigues closed tighter around them. Khalid's mind raced. 1,000 strategies, loyalties and betrayals intertwining like serpents coiled in the sands. "You must trust me," Amira said quietly, "because the enemy's next move will strike deeper than the surface wars." His fingers curled around hers, a vow passing silently between them. Here, in the sprawling heart of the palace, two souls bound by fate began to stitch a fragile alliance, a tapestry woven from pain, hope, and defiance. Suddenly, the distant sound of a bell tolled from the inner chambers, low and ominous. Khalid's expression hardened. The council must meet without delay. Amira's gaze flickered with hesitation. "There's one more danger you must know." Her voice was barely a whisper, yet it carried the weight of doom. Khalid's brows furrowed. "Speak!" She stepped closer, her breath warm against his cheek. "There's a traitor among your closest, and their betrayal will shatter everything." The words sank like rocks in the vast desert. Khalid's pulse pounded beneath his silk robe, heart caught between fear and fury. A slow, deliberate knock came at the massive doors. Both turned as the heavy oak groaned open once again. A shadow detached itself from the threshold, a figure veiled but familiar. "Your Highness," came a voice, cold and smooth, dripping with venom disguised as loyalty. "I bring news you must hear alone." Khalid's eyes hardened into blizzards of ice and fire. The palace that once gleamed with grandeur was now a crucible of secrets and betrayal. And amid its gilded towers, the battlefield of their hearts and empires had just been revealed. He stepped forward, the crown heavier than ever. "Enter." As the figure crossed the threshold, the flickering lanterns cast long shadows, shadows that seemed to whisper one undeniable truth. In the palace of Zahram, trust was the rarest treasure, and it was about to be stolen. The grand hall shimmered under the flickering light of 100 candles, their flames trembling as if sensing the storm brewing beneath the gilded ceilings. Khalid's eyes, usually cold and unyielding, burned with a new fire, a fierce blend of worry, determination, and a fragile hope he barely dared acknowledge. Amira stood beside him, her presence a steady pulse against the chaos that threatened to engulf them both. Outside, the distant clash of steel and the urgent cries of guards echoed faintly. Through the palace walls, the desert night wrapped Zahram Palace like a velvet cloak, but within, shadows moved with deadly intent. Khalid's jaw clenched as his mind raced through possibilities. Traitors within, enemies without, and a woman whose secret legacy now tethered their fates inextricably. He broke the silence, voice low, almost a whisper that seemed to crack the air with its intensity. "Tell me everything, Amira. No more shadows, no more half-truths." Her dark eyes met his, a storm of conflicting emotions swirling within. "My family was shattered by betrayal, Khalid. Those who destroyed us are woven into the very fabric of your court. Soraya is their spider, silent but deadly. Her influence seeps into every corner, poisoning loyalty and truth alike." A bitter laugh escaped Khalid's lips, barely audible, but filled with grim recognition. "I always knew she wore a mask, but I never saw the fangs beneath." Amira's hand brushed against his arm, a fleeting contact filled with both comfort and urgency. "She's only one piece. There are whispers of a coup, old alliances breaking, and new shadows rising. Our enemies play a deeper game, one that could consume us all." Khalid's gaze darkened, the weight of the crown pressing heavily upon him. "Then our enemy is not just beyond these walls, but hidden within them. We must root them out before they bring ruin." Her lips pressed tightly, a brief flash of doubt crossing her face. "To do that, we will need allies. But whom can we trust when every smile hides a knife?" The silence that followed was pregnant with unspoken fears. Khalid looked beyond the ornate pillars, past the glinting chandeliers, and saw the fragile threads holding his empire together. Threads fraying with every secret unveiled. "You've awakened something in me, Amira," he confessed, voice rough with emotion. "A need to fight not just for the throne, but for the woman who dares to stand beside me with fire in her eyes." Her breath caught, the vulnerability between them a sharp contrast to the cold opulence surrounding them. "And I," she whispered, "have found a man beneath the ruler, flawed, fierce, and fiercely loyal." The distance between them collapsed, and for a heartbeat, time itself seemed to freeze. Then, without warning, the room plunged into darkness. The candles flickered and died, swallowed by a suffocating blackness that pressed against their skin like a living thing. Khalid's hand shot out, finding Amira's with desperate certainty. "What?" A piercing scream shattered the silence, followed by the crash of breaking glass and the staccato beat of hurried footsteps racing through the corridors. The heavy doors to the grand hall rattled violently, then slammed shut with a thunderous finality that echoed through the marble halls. "An attack," Amira breathed, voice tight but unwavering. "They're inside." Khalid's heart thundered, the cold steel of his will sharpening into a blade of resolve. "Prepare the guards. Seal every passage. No one leaves." Their fingers remained entwined, a lifeline amid the encroaching chaos. Yet beneath the surface of their united front, a deeper, darker truth throbbed, one neither dared voice aloud. Through the void where light once danced, a voice whispered, low and venomous, curling like smoke in the air. "You think yourself safe? The palace bleeds secrets far darker." "Then you can imagine." A chilling laugh followed, distant but unmistakable. Then the faint sound of a lock clicking, a gate opening somewhere in the depths of Zaram Palace, and unseen feet moving silently toward their doom. Khalid's breath caught, his pulse pounding like the war drums of the desert. "Who's there?" Only silence answered, thick and suffocating. In the shadowed corner, eyes gleamed with cruel excitement, watching the unfolding storm with hungry anticipation. The game was no longer one of whispered schemes or hidden enemies. It had become a battlefield, a ruthless dance of power, passion, and betrayal. Khalid tightened his grip on Amira's hand, the promise of protection and trust binding them against the looming shadows. "We will face this," he vowed, voice raw with conviction. "Together. No secret will shatter us. But we must. Be ready, for the traitor is already among us." As the darkness deepened, a single candle reignited spontaneously, its pale flame revealing a twisted smile carved in shadow, an invitation to the deadly game just beginning. And somewhere in the labyrinthine halls of the palace, a soft, deliberate whisper cut through the night. They will not survive what comes next. The sudden slam of the heavy oak doors reverberated through the grand hall, sealing Khalid and Amira within an uneasy stillness that pressed against their skin like the desert heat outside. Flickering candlelight painted their faces in shifting shadows, shadows heavy with secrets, fears, and unspoken truths. Khalid's gaze was fixed on Amira, her silhouette marked by resilience, yet her eyes betrayed a storm barely contained beneath her calm. Her fingers still trembled slightly in his grasp. A fragile connection in the growing darkness. The palace, once a sanctuary of opulence and control, now felt like a gilded cage teetering on the edge of collapse. Every whispered breath seemed magnified. Every step outside the hall a potential herald of betrayal or violence. Khalid's voice cut through the suffocating silence, roughened by urgency. "Tell me everything. No more walls, no more shadows between us." Amira inhaled deeply, the scent of jasmine and old wood blending in the air as she stepped closer, her gaze unwavering. "This palace holds more than just gold and silk," she said softly. "It harbors poison, hidden alliances that thread through these halls like desert snakes. Soraya is merely the surface." Pain flickered behind Khalid's eyes. Memories of trust shattered by veiled threats. The queen's confidant, once a shadow, in the periphery, now moved with the calculated grace of a predator. "And you trust her not?" he asked, the hard edge of command softening with an unfamiliar ache. "I don't," Amira admitted. "She's linked to those who destroyed my family, those who would see us both broken, ruled by fear and lies. They manipulate from within, their loyalties shifting like the sands outside. Their breaths mingled in the chilled night air, long and steady, fighting the tension that pulled at their cores. Khalid's fingers curled around hers, a silent vow, unspoken but deeply felt. The fragility of trust was a new battleground for them both. Suddenly, from the distant corridor, the sharp echo of hurried footsteps shattered the fragile calm. Khalid's eyes snapped toward the open doorway, just as Soraya entered, her presence regal and dangerous. Her smile was thin, polished to perfection, but carrying a lethal edge. "My sheikh," Soraya's voice was sweet poison. "The unrest spreads. The southern provinces burn with rebellion, but the true fire lies dangerously close to home." Her gaze flicked to Amira, slow and deliberate, laced with a subtle threat. "Some guests, however, may require more delicate supervision." Khalid stiffened, his hand tightening imperceptibly on Amira's. "She is not a distraction." He stated sharply, "She is our ally." Soraya's smile tightened further, almost a sneer hidden beneath practiced civility. "As you command, my sheikh," she said, retreating into the shadows from which she came, leaving a chill in her wake. The door's heavy thud left an emptiness behind, larger than the silence itself. Amira's eyes flickered with unyielding fire. "She watches us, waits. Every smile she offers masks a blade poised to strike." Khalid's jaw clenched, the weight of his crown pressing down with renewed urgency. "We walk a dangerous path. I will uncover every lie woven through this court." Their gazes met, a fierce storm of defiance and hope igniting between them. "Together," he promised, voice low but resolute. Amira nodded, stepping closer, her breath a warm contrast against the cool marble. "There's something else," she confessed, voice trembling with the weight of dread. "A traitor lurks among your closest, someone who will betray you when the time is right." Khalid's heart thundered, the air thickening as a sense of impending doom settled like dust over the palace. "Who?" he demanded, desperation sharpening his tone. Before she could answer, a silence swallowed the room. Then the faintest, almost imperceptible sound, A whisper of footsteps, soft but steady, emerging from a hidden passage nearby. Khalid's eyes narrowed to icy slits, his every muscle taut with tension. "Show yourself." No reply came. Instead, the flickering candles seemed to shudder, as if the very walls of Zahram Palace were holding their breath. Amira's hand tightened around his, steadying him. "They've breached our defenses, not with swords, but with deceit, emptiness, and shadows." The door creaked open slowly, a figure stepping forth from the dim corridor. Cloaked in darkness, the face concealed, but the presence undeniable, heavy with intent. "My sheikh," came a voice, low and measured. "There are truths you do not know, secrets that threaten to unravel your reign. I have come to offer a choice." Khalid's gaze locked on the figure, fury and suspicion, warring with a flicker of intrigue. "Speak." The stranger's cloak slipped partially, revealing eyes as sharp and unreadable as the desert night. "The enemy you seek is not beyond these walls, but among those you trust. Betrayal runs deeper than you imagine. Only by stepping into the shadows yourself will you uncover who carries the dagger." A cold wind swept through the hall, stirring the silks and lifting the scent of jasmine and oud into a frenzied dance. Khalid's hand released Amira's briefly, reaching for the ornate dagger at his side, a symbol of power and survival. "Trust is a luxury I can no longer afford," he muttered, voice thick with resolve. Amira's eyes glimmered with both fear and fierce allegiance. "We are surrounded." Her lips pressed tightly as she added, "But I will stand by you against every whisper and shadow." Their hands found each other once more, a beacon amid the encroaching darkness. Yet, as the candle flames cast grotesque shadows across the towering pillars, an ominous chill crawled through the palace bones. From deep within Zahram's labyrinthine passages, a faint but unmistakable sound, a soft, metallic click, signaled a lock sliding open. Silent as desert sand, unseen footsteps began their lethal approach. Khalid's breath hitched. "This night," he vowed, "will test every bond, every secret. And when dawn breaks, only the strongest truths will remain standing." The darkness swallowed his words, leaving behind a silence thick as desert storm clouds, and a promise hanging like a blade over Zahram Palace. The traitor moves closer, and the game of power and passion has only just begun. The candlelight flickered weakly as a sudden chill swept through the grand hall, snuffing out the remaining flames. Darkness spilled like ink, swallowing the opulence of Zahram Palace. The scent of jasmine and rare oud faded, replaced by the sharp sting of fear hanging thick in the air. Khalid's fingers tightened around Amira's hand, the only tangible link amidst the encroaching void. His voice, low yet resolute, cut through the silence. "We are no longer safe within these walls. The enemy is closer than ever, veiled not only in shadows beyond, but in whispers here." Amira's breath was steady, despite the turmoil inside. Her eyes, deep pools of guarded sorrow, locked with Khalid's. The traitor moves freely, masked by loyalty, untouchable. Every smile in the court hides a dagger, poised to strike. The distant echo of soldiers' hurried footsteps rattled through the corridors, snapping their fragile truce with silence. The cold marble beneath their feet seemed to shiver, echoing the unrest that seeped from the heart of the palace itself. Khalid's gaze swept over the gilded pillars, glittering mirrors, and intricate mosaics, all symbols of power now stripped to brittle fragility. We face not just rebellion, but the decay within, Khalid whispered, the weight of his crown suddenly heavier on his brow. His usual icy command softened, a rare flicker of vulnerability surfacing. Tell me everything you know, Amira. No more secrets. She stepped forward, her silk skirt whispering against the marble floor. Soraya is more dangerous than anyone suspects. She spins webs of deception that choke even the closest allies. Her loyalty belongs to those who wish to see this palace and us fall. Khalid's jaw clenched, the sharp edge of authority sharpening anew. Remove her from the council. She is poison. Amira's lips pressed into a thin line. She will not yield so easily. Her roots reach deeper and darker than even the throne's influence. A thunderous crash shattered the moment as a distant window exploded, shards of glass swirling through the air like deadly confetti. The palace seemed to hold its breath as guards rushed toward the disturbance, their armor clinking like a storm brewing beneath the surface. Khalid and Amira exchanged a long, charged glance, unspoken promises simmering between them. The fragile alliance they had forged would be tested now by betrayal, blood, and unforgiving truth. We are outnumbered, surrounded by enemies cloaked in silk and lies, Khalid said, voice barely above a growl. Yet here, in this darkness, something rises, a fire I thought long extinguished within me. Amira's fingers tightened against his hand, her gaze unwavering. Let them come. We will face the storm together. No secret, no betrayal will crush what we hold. A sudden movement caught Khalid's eye, a shadow slipping through the periphery, swift and silent. His breath hitched, muscles tensing like desert steel. "Who's there?" he demanded, voice echoing through the darkened hall. No answer, just the cruel laughter of the desert wind seeping through cracked walls. From the depths of the palace came a soft, chilling whisper, weaving through the silence like venom. Trust is a luxury your house can no longer afford. Khalid's eyes flamed with a fierce storm. Power, pain, and an unyielding will flickering in their depths. He pulled Amira closer, as if their union alone could ward off the gathering shadows. Behind every smile lies a secret, she murmured, and the deadliest secret waits among those closest to you. The grand doors creaked open suddenly, a figure stepping hesitantly into the flickering gloom. Cloaked in uncertainty, the visitor's face was hidden beneath the folds of night. Yet the weight of the presence filled the room, thick with promises and peril. "My sheikh." The voice was low, edged with warning. "There are truths that cannot be ignored. The enemy wears no uniform, and the dagger is already at the heart of your throne." Khalid's stare hardened, the steel of his resolve resurfacing beneath the cracks of doubt. "Speak." The figure shifted, shadows revealing a pair of eyes, cold, knowing, and merciless. "Your kingdom is crumbling, not by armies at the gates, but by those in your halls. The queen's confidant is but one thread in a tapestry of treachery." The traitor is among your blood. The air grew heavier, the walls themselves seeming to close in. Khalid's hand slid to the ornate dagger sheathed at his side, a blade forged not just of metal, but of burdens carried across generations. Amira's voice trembled, the weight of dread pressing against her chest. There is a sacrifice to be made. Trust will be shattered and hearts broken. But only through fire can steel be remade. Khalid's breath slowed, pain and ownership colliding in his gaze. Then let the flames come. I will not reign in a palace of lies. The visitor's shadow lengthened as a pale glow flickered from a torch in the corridor. The figure turned away, disappearing into the night's embrace. Alone, Khalid and Amira remained, the silence louder than any proclamation. The first ray of dawn had not yet touched Zaharam Palace when an unseen hand pressed a folded note into Khalid's palm. He unfolded it, eyes scanning the cryptic message written in elegant script. Not all foes wear masks. Some dance in silk beside you. Beware the rose that blooms at midnight. His pulse surged, the scent of jasmine thick now with menace. The game had deepened, and the stakes had never been higher. Khalid's gaze met Amira's, steady, fierce, and unyielding. Together, they stood at the edge of a precipice, where every step forward could mean salvation or total ruin. And from the shadows beyond the crystal chandeliers, a whispered laugh echoed, cold and victorious. The rose beckons, but it conceals a blade. The night had deepened into a velvet shadow that seemed to swallow the grandeur of Zaharam Palace whole. The flickering light of a solitary candle cast dancing silhouettes on the walls, painting the opulence in muted gold and creeping darkness. Khalid stood rigid, the ornate dagger at his side heavy in its sheath, while Amira's hand remained locked in his, a fragile tether against the surging tide of danger that flooded the vast hall. The visitor's words echoed in his mind, a chilling riddle unraveling the delicate threads of trust. The traitor was not beyond these walls, but nestled within the very heart of his empire. A venomous notion that twisted even the strongest resolve into wary vigilance. Amira's eyes, darker than the night beyond the windows, bore into his with an urgent plea. Every whisper, every smile hides a secret. Soraya's shadow has spread deeper than we imagined. But there's someone closer, someone who wears your confidence like a mask, who waits for the perfect moment to strike. Khalid's jaw tensed. The weight of betrayal settled coldly over him. The crown he bore suddenly felt less like a symbol of power and more like a chain. He tightened his grip around Amira's hand, as if anchoring himself against the storm to come. "The palace is no longer a fortress," he muttered, voice low and sharp. "It is a labyrinth of shadows, and in such darkness, even the brightest souls falter." Amira stepped closer, the softness of her silhouette contrasting the steel forced into her tone. "We cannot face this alone. Trust is fragile, but it is all we have." Her fingers brushed half a heartbeat over his hand, a whisper of promise. "You must know, there's one more truth, a secret I have kept to protect you." Khalid's eyes narrowed, the fierce light within them dimmed only by curiosity and anxiety. "Speak, now." Her breath caught. "The bloodline I carry, it is not just a key to my past, but a warning for our future. Her voice faltered slightly, weighted by the legacy she bore. The enemy who hunted my family is connected to those who sit silently beside you. Their roots dig into the palace's foundation deeper than any of us dared suspect. His breath caught, the chamber suddenly too stifling, the scents of jasmine and oud twisting into something heavy and suffocating. Khalid's mind raced, piecing together fragments of lies, alliances, and betrayals tangled like desert thorns. "Then the war is already here," he said, the steel in his voice hardening. "We stand on a precipice, Amira. One false step and all falls." Suddenly, the heavy doors of the grand hall were flung open with a violent crash, slamming against the walls and stirring a whirlwind of candle flames. The air thickened with tension as shadowed figures poured into the room, guards, hastily summoned, their armor reflecting the fierce glints of swords drawn. Khalid's gaze flicked sharply to the intruders, his command slicing through the chaos. "Seal every passage. No one leaves." Amira's hand squeezed his, their silent pact unyielding amid the turmoil. But even as order tried to root itself in the storm, Khalid's attention was drawn to the shifting shadows near the threshold, a presence moving with calculated grace and deadly intent. From the swirling darkness emerged Soraya, her eyes glittering with an inscrutable mixture of triumph and malice. The queen's confidant moved with the poise of a serpent, every step an echo of the silent poison she had unleashed throughout the court. "My sheikh," she purred, voice silk and steel entwined, "it seems your fortress has cracks deeper than walls can conceal. Perhaps it's time to reconsider who truly holds your trust." Khalid's eyes narrowed, burning with a tempest of rage and cold calculation. "You have overstepped, Soraya." A cruel smile curved her lips. "And yet, I still sit where power allows. Do not mistake my presence for weakness." Her gaze bore into Amira, sharp as a blade's edge. "Some wounds cannot be healed by those who bleed." Amira's stance did not waver. A fire lit deep in her eyes. "We are no fools anymore. Your webs are unraveling." Soraya's smile flickered into a sneer. "Watch carefully, for the greatest betrayal is one that no heart sees coming." As guards closed in behind her, Soraya vanished into the corridors, leaving behind a chill that seemed to seep into every stone. Khalid turned swiftly to Amira, fear and fury warring within him. "She is only the surface. The true dagger is poised in shadows where we least expect." Their eyes met, a silent accord. This battle would be fought, not only with swords, but with secrets and sacrifice. The distant sound of a bell tolled thrice, each chime resonating like a death knell. The palace seemed to hold its breath. Amira's voice trembled with sudden urgency. "There is one more. Someone who hides behind the guise of loyalty. A mask no one suspects. Their betrayal will shatter everything we've tried to build." Khalid's pulse thundered. "Who?" he demanded, desperation edging his command. Before she could answer, the grand hall's entrance flickered with shadows as a figure slowly materialized, a face concealed beneath a veil, steps measured yet deliberate. "My sheikh," the voice was low and laced with intrigue. "You seek the traitor, yet I bring a warning. The enemy is closer than your closest allies. Trust must be earned anew, for the knife is already at your throat. Khalid's hand instinctively rested on the hilt of his dagger, eyes piercing through the gloom. Reveal yourself. The figure lifted the veil, just enough, revealing eyes steeled by secrets and unspoken vows. The rose that blooms at midnight hides the sharpest thorns. A sudden whisper rode the chill wind, as the palace seemed to shrink around them, shadows weaving an unseen web of menace and fate. The candlelight flickered violently, momentarily swallowing the hall in darkness before reigniting, casting a pale glow across faces etched with resolve and dread. Khalid's grip on Amira's hand tightened, a silent oath passing between them. No matter the darkness, no matter the scars that would be carved by betrayal, they would face it together. And just beyond the veil of shadows, in the depths of Zahram Palace, an unseen smile curved upon lips that knew the secrets to undo them all. The first light of dawn seeped gently into the grand hall of Zahram Palace, softening the harsh edges of the night's turmoil. The vast chamber, once shadowed by secrets and whispered betrayals, now breathed a tentative calm. Khalid al-Nasir stood tall, the weight of his crown finally feeling less like a burden, and more like the mantle of a man reborn. Beside him, Amira's steady presence was no longer a hidden enigma, but the solid heart tethering his fractured world. The night had tested them beyond measure. The traitors had been unmasked. The webs of deceit that Soraya and her accomplices wove had been ripped apart by the unyielding fire of truth. Khalid's sharp gaze still bore the traces of sleepless hours, but beneath it radiated a quiet strength, a testament to battles fought and won, not by swords alone, but by courage and trust. Amira's story had unfolded like the desert rose, delicate, yet fiercely rooted in survival and honor. Her royal lineage, once a secret, imprisoned behind walls of exile and silence, was now a beacon lighting a path toward unity and healing. She had faced down shadows darker than the endless desert night, and emerged not just as a survivor, but as Khalid's equal in strength and spirit. Together, they had confronted the darkness lurking within their palace. The traitor, cloaked under the guise of loyalty, had been revealed and brought to justice. Their combined resolve had silenced the whispers that threatened to unravel their kingdom. Khalid's empire was no longer a fragile throne balanced on treachery. It was a fortress, fortified by truth and shared purpose. As the amber sun rose over the horizon, spilling golden light through the towering windows, the palace gardens bloomed with vibrant colors, as if mirroring the renewal blossoming within these walls. The scent of jasmine mingled with fresh earth and blossoming petals, weaving a promise of peace and new beginnings. The grand hall, once a stage of suspicion and fear, now echoed gently with the soft laughter of courtiers and the hopeful whispers of change. Khalid finally released a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. His hand found Amira's, their fingers intertwining with the ease of two souls no longer divided by secrets or silent wars. The walls around them, once cold and imposing, seemed to pulsate with warmth, a sanctuary shaped by love and forged in the crucible of hardship. Their eyes met, and the long journey between them dissolved in that glance. No words were needed to convey what had been built, a love unbreakable, tempered by trials, and gloriously free from the shadows that once threatened to consume them. Amira's smile, soft and genuine, was a balm to Khalid's once icy heart. He saw not just the woman who had carried a crown hidden by exile, but the partner who would walk beside him as they ruled, not through fear, but through hope. As courtiers gathered to witness the union that had emerged from the palace's darkest hours, Khalid stepped forward to address his people. His voice, once laced with cold command, now carried a richness born of humility and strength. The shadows that once loomed over Zaharm have been faced and overcome, he declared, eyes sweeping across the assembly. Our kingdom is not built on secrets or lies, but on the courage to face truth and the power of uniting hearts and hands. Today marks the beginning of a new era, one of justice, compassion, and the unbreakable bond between a sheikh and his people. Applause rippled through the hall, a heartfelt wave of reconciliation and renewed faith. Amira stood by his side, radiant and serene, her heritage embraced openly and proudly. Together, they symbolized not only the legacy of an empire reborn, but also the promise of lasting peace born from the fierce fire of their shared trials. Later, beneath the open sky in the palace gardens, soft music flowed on the night breeze as friends and family celebrated. Khalid and Amira stood together, gazing at the stars that sparkled like ancient diamonds, the same stars under which their fates had been entwined. The past, with all its sorrows and secrets, lay behind them, replaced by the promise of a future written hand in hand. Amira's fingers brushed gently against Khalid's cheek, her touch light, yet filled with the weight of unspoken promises. We have journeyed through shadows, Khalid, but now we stand firmly in the light. He smiled, the warmth of that smile reaching his eyes, the first true light in a heart once shrouded in frost. With you, Amira, I fear nothing. Together, we are stronger than any secret, any enemy. Our story will be one of love, honor, and unwavering loyalty. The wind carried their whispered vow across the blossoming gardens, as moonlight bathed the palace in a silver glow. In that moment, amid petals and stars, Khalid and Amira were no longer prisoner and servant, exile and ruler. They were simply two souls united by destiny, ready to face whatever dawn awaited. The tale of the billionaire sheikh and the maiden of secret royal blood had reached its end, but their legend, born of love and resilience, would echo across the sands for generations to come.